The Galactic Council Chamber fell silent as Queen Velara of the Threen Empire materialized through the quantum gate, her forearms trembling with barely contained emotion. The assembled ambassadors from 17 different species turned to witness the sight. That had brought the most powerful monarch in 3 sectors to her knees. On the central viewing screen, a live feed from a distant human colony world showed something impossible. 2 small Threen juveniles, no more than 5 cycles old, lay curled against the chest of a sleeping human male. The human's arms were wrapped protectively around the children. Their tiny crystalline wings folded peacefully against their backs as they breathed in perfect synchronization with their unlikely guardian. "Those are my daughters," Velara whispered, her voice breaking through the translator with raw anguish. Myra and Kessa. They were taken from the royal nursery 8 cycles ago. The human ambassador, a weathered woman named Victoria Grant, stepped forward with practiced diplomacy. "Your Majesty, we had no knowledge of their identity." The colonist who found them, James Riley, reported discovering 2 injured alien children in a crashed escape pod 3 months ago. He has been caring for them ever since. Velara's eyes blazed with the inner light of her species, a sign of intense emotion that made several ambassadors step back instinctively. Caring for them? A human? Threen young require specialized nutrients, precise temperature regulation, and constant psionic contact with their maternal bond. Without these things, they die within weeks. Victoria allowed herself a small smile. "Perhaps you should see the rest of the footage." The screen shifted to earlier recordings. James Riley, a broad-shouldered man with sun-weathered skin and gentle eyes, could be seen carefully feeding the children, a mixture he had apparently created himself. The timestamp showed this was from 2 months prior, when the girls had been weak and malnourished. "I did some research." James's voice came through the recording as he spoke to his personal log. "Threen physiology requires high concentrations of crystalline minerals and bioluminescent algae. Lucky for these little ones, the caves near my homestead have both. I've been grinding the minerals fine and mixing them with the algae I cultivate in my greenhouse. They seem to like it when I warm it to about 90 degrees. The scene changed to show James sitting cross-legged on his floor, the 2 children pressed against him as he hummed a low, rhythmic tune. Their wings, which had been dull and gray in earlier footage, now shimmered with faint iridescent light. "The psionic contact," breathed Velara's chief advisor, an elderly Threen named Borin. "Humans are not psionic. How is this possible?" Victoria pulled up another file. "Our xenobiologists have a theory. Humans may not have traditional psionic abilities, but we are intensely social creatures. We bond through physical contact, vocal communication, and emotional resonance. It seems that James's constant presence, his touch, and even his voice have provided a substitute for the maternal psionic bond." The footage showed James reading to the children from an old book, his deep voice steady and calm. Mira and Kessa were wrapped in blankets he had sewn himself, their small hands clutching his shirt as they listened. Their eyes, large and multifaceted like cut gems, never left his face. "He talks to them constantly," Victoria continued. "He sings to them, tells them stories, explains everything he does throughout the day. Our psychologists believe the constant stream of vocal and emotional input has been interpreted by their developing minds as a form of psionic contact." Velara watched in silence as the recordings continued. James teaching the girls to walk in his garden, steadying them with patient hands as they stumbled on unsteady legs. James fashioning toys from wood and polished stones, his face lighting up with joy at their delighted chirps. James sitting up through the night when Kessa developed a fever, cooling her forehead with damp cloths and whispering reassurances until the crisis passed. "He has no idea who they are," Victoria said quietly. "He believes them to be orphans from some disaster. He has been petitioning our colonial government for formal adoption rights. The current live feed showed James beginning to wake. The movement disturbed Mira, who made a small sound of protest and burrowed deeper against his chest. Without fully opening his eyes, James adjusted his position to accommodate her, one hand coming up to gently stroke the delicate membrane of her wing. Both children settled immediately, slipping back into deeper sleep. Velara's advisor Boren spoke with difficulty. "Your Majesty, the kidnapping was orchestrated by the Vren separatists. We tracked them to the edge of human space before losing their trail. The escape pod must have been jettisoned when they encountered human patrol ships. They likely assumed the children would perish in the crash. They nearly did," Victoria added, pulling up the initial rescue report. "The pod was damaged badly. James found them in critical condition, hypothermic and starving. By all medical assessments, they should not have survived even the first night." The Queen's 4 hands clenched into fists. Yet this human, with no training, no resources, no knowledge of my people, managed to save them where our own rescue teams failed to even locate them. On screen, James finally opened his eyes fully. He looked down at the 2 small forms nestled against him, and his expression transformed into something so tender that several council members shifted uncomfortably. He carefully extracted himself from beneath the sleeping children, replacing his body with a large pillow that he had clearly prepared for this purpose. The girls stirred, but did not wake, unconsciously wrapping their arms around the pillow as they had held him. James moved quietly around his modest home, preparing breakfast. He mixed the mineral algae paste with practiced efficiency, dividing it into 2 small bowls decorated with hand-painted flowers. He set them on a low table he had built specifically for the children's height, then returned to gently wake them. "Morning, little stars," he murmured, using the nickname he had given them. "Time to wake up. I made your favorite." Myra's eyes opened first, all 6 inner lids retracting in sequence. She saw James and immediately reached for him with a happy trill. Kessa woke moments later, equally eager for his attention. He gathered them both up, one in each arm, and carried them to the table. The council watched as he supervised their breakfast, correcting their grip on the specialized utensils he had crafted, praising their improving coordination. He wiped their faces clean with gentle patience when they made a mess, laughing softly at their antics. "He loves them?" Velara said, and it was not a question. "Yes," Victoria confirmed. "Our observers report that he has restructured his entire life around their needs. He works his farm during their nap times, conducts all business from his home, and has turned down several lucrative contracts that would have required travel. According to his neighbors, he speaks of nothing but the girls and their progress." Boring cleared his throat. "Your Majesty, the law is clear. The children must be returned to the Threen Empire. They are heirs to the throne, and their education in our ways must begin immediately." The live feed showed James helping the girls into the small coats he had made for them, preparing for their morning walk through his garden. Kessa was chattering in a mix of Threen clicks and the human words James had been teaching her. Mera, quieter by nature, held tightly to James's hand as they stepped outside into the sunlight. Lara watched her daughters exploring the garden, their wings catching the light as they fluttered with excitement over some discovery. James knelt beside them, pointing out the different plants, letting them touch the soft petals under his careful supervision. When Myra stumbled, he caught her before she could fall. When Kessa picked a flower and offered it to him, he accepted it like the precious gift it was, tucking it carefully into his shirt pocket. "Ambassador Grant," the Queen said slowly, "I wish to speak with this human. Arrange transport to the colony world immediately." The journey took 2 days, even with the Threen Empire's fastest ships. Velara insisted on minimal escort, wanting to avoid frightening the children or their guardian. She materialized in the clearing, outside James's homestead just as the sun was setting. Accompanied only by Boren and Ambassador Grant. James was outside, pushing the girls on a swing he had constructed from rope and a polished plank. Their laughter rang through the evening air, bright and musical. He saw the arrival of the delegation and immediately moved to place himself between them and the children, his body language protective despite the obvious power disparity. "Can I help you?" he asked, his voice steady but wary. Velara stepped forward, lowering herself to a less threatening posture. "James Riley, I am Queen Velara of the Threen Empire. These children you have been caring for are my daughters Mira and Kessa. They were stolen from me 8 cycles ago." The color drained from James's face. He looked back at the girls, who had stopped swinging and were watching the strangers with wide eyes. "Your daughters," he repeated numbly. "You're their mother." "I am." James swallowed hard. When he spoke again, his voice was rough with emotion. "Then I guess you'll be taking them home." Mira and Kessa, sensing the tension, ran to James. They pressed against his legs, their small hands clutching his pants. Kessa began to cry, and Myra's wings flared in distress. Velara felt her heart's breaking as she watched. Her daughters seek comfort from this human instead of recognizing their own mother. But she also saw the way James immediately knelt down, gathering them close, whispering reassurances even as his own eyes filled with tears. "It's okay," he told them softly. "It's going to be okay." The queen approached slowly, carefully. "They do not remember me," she said, her voice thick with pain. "They were so young when they were taken." James looked up at her, and she saw understanding in his eyes despite his grief. "They need you," he said simply. "They need to know where they come from, who their people are. I could never give them that." "No," Velara agreed. "But you have given them something equally precious. You gave them life when they should have died. You gave them love when they were alone. You gave them safety when the universe had shown them only cruelty." She knelt beside them, bringing herself to James's level. Mira and Kessa watched her with cautious curiosity, still clinging to James, but no longer crying. "I have a proposal," Velara said, looking directly at the human who had saved her children. "The Threen Empire has a tradition for those who preserve royal lives. You would be granted the title of Guardian, with all rights and privileges. You would live on the royal world, helping to raise Myra and Kessa as they learn our ways. They would not lose you, and I would not lose any more time with my daughters." James stared at her. "You want me to come with them?" "I want my daughters to have every advantage, every source of strength and love available to them," Velara said firmly. "You have proven yourself more capable than my entire royal guard. You have done what should have been impossible. How could I take them from the only parent they remember?" Tears ran freely down James's face now. "I'm just a farmer. I don't know anything about being royalty or living on alien worlds." "You know how to love them," Velara said gently. "You know what they need to thrive. That is enough." Kessa tugged on James's shirt, looking up at him with worried eyes. "Stay?" she asked in careful human speech. "You stay?" James pulled both girls close, pressing kisses to the tops of their heads. "Yeah, little stars," he whispered. "I'll stay. I'll always stay." Velara reached out slowly, telegraphing her movement. She placed one of her hands on Naira's head, another on Kessa's. The girls looked at her with curiosity rather than fear. "I am your mother," she told them in Threen, then repeated it in human speech for James's benefit. "I have searched for you across the stars, and I have found you safe, loved, and happy. This human has given me the greatest gift in the universe." She looked at James, this unremarkable farmer from an unremarkable world who had accomplished the impossible through nothing more than compassion and stubborn determination. "Thank you," she said. And in those 2 words was the weight of an empire's gratitude. Thank you for keeping them safe until I could bring them home. James nodded, unable to speak. He understood that home now meant something different, something bigger than his small farmstead. But as he held Myra and Kessa close, feeling their small hearts beating against his chest, he knew that wherever they were, that would be home enough. The stars above began to emerge as darkness fell. The same stars that had witnessed a mother's anguish and a stranger's kindness, now bearing witness to a family being reborn in a form no one could have predicted. And in that moment, beneath the vast and indifferent cosmos, love proved itself once again to be the most powerful force in the universe.